With this drawing, we are using baseline dimensioning, where we start at 0 in the center of our first circle, work up to the first feature, which happens to be 38.05 inches and millimeters, and then we come back to 0 and the next feature is 45. So you'll see how that works when we start drawing it. The first thing I'm going to do in Mastercam is get my quadrant, and we're going to start with a circle for our right side view. So I'll create a circle, center point, and in Mastercam, since we're working in the metric system, we can type the dimensions directly in. So although it does have metric and English or standard, we can go ahead and type in the outside diameter of this, which is 56 millimeters for our diameter, excuse me. And that will place our first circle. I'm going to get this moved in a better location. Alright. And from that circle, we're going to work with a center line. So I'm going to create a line directly off the center at 180 degrees. And we know that the length of that line happens to be 63.46 millimeters. So we'll type in 63.46 mm. Don't forget the millimeter sign. Alright. And that brings us all the way to our outside edge. So what I'm going to do is just roughly hash out this rectangular shape by creating a line that is 180 degrees in this direction. Excuse me, 90 degrees. And we'll go 270 degrees for our next line. Alright. From that, we can eventually start trimming up if we offset. We know that the distance from our center line of our circle is 28 millimeters, so I can X-form offset 28 mm, and I'll offset this line up. Perfect. Alright. I don't yet know this bottom dimension of this arc, but we can get that in. Okay? So what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to go ahead and get my other center circle placed, which has a diameter of 28.85 millimeters. So I can create arc center circle with a diameter of 28.85 millimeters. Lock that in. Good. Hit enter. Okay. I'm also going to get my next circle placed, and to do that, what I'm going to do is just create a line for construction that is 90 degrees that we can offset. So that'll allow me to X-form offset this line to the center point of that circle, which happens to be 45.5 millimeters. 45.5 mm, not inches. Good. And then we can create a center circle on that point. Create arc center circle directly here with a diameter of 25.5 millimeters. Okay? Now, the circle or arc that starts to sweep down in this direction, we're not given a radius for, but we know that it's tangent to this circle and tangent to this line. So what I'm going to do is create a arc with a center point circle that is directly on the center and also comes out and hits this point. That allows this to be tangent here, and then we can simply create a line that is tangent here. This will eventually get trimmed up. To create a tangent line in SolidWorks, All we're doing is creating a line with an endpoint, and if you have your tangent option checked, it will automatically select the tangent. The problem that a lot of people run into is if you look at this quadrant, when it grabs that little quadrant with that little square symbol, that is not necessarily tangent. You'll end up with a line that looks like, I can zoom over here, that looks like this. And it's not necessarily tangent. So what I recommend is we turn off our active grid for the time being by going to Settings, Configuration, Grid Settings, and turning off our active grid. You can leave it visible, but turn off the active grid. If it makes you remember that it's off, you can also turn off visible, and then your grid will actually disappear. Then to create a tangent line, it's create a line that's an endpoint line, and you're simply selecting the circle at any location. Upon doing so, Mastercam will go ahead and make a tangent line. Alright? So then we can go ahead and get all this stuff trimmed up. In this particular case, this line right here can actually be deleted, and we can start trimming these entities up. This top circle can disappear. Good. And we'll get this line trimmed up here. You'll get that later. Delete this point. Delete that point. We no longer need our circle center line, but we'll leave it for the time being. We can get this trimmed up. Good. And this also has a radius up here, but that radius is given to us as the difference between 28 millimeters and 20.02 millimeters, since we were using baseline dimensioning. So what I can do is actually create a fillet entity, and the radius of that's going to become 28 millimeters minus 20.02 millimeters, which is 0.3147 inches. And when I select that, that will automatically create that fillet for me. Alright. At this point, that's the basic shape of our first drawing, or the dual DS front cam 2, as this drawing is referred to. At that point, you can simply get this drawing finished up by placing circles here, 2 circles, getting this center line removed, and then projecting up. So to place our other circles, I know that those circles are 20.02 millimeters off my center line. So I could simply X-form offset 22.02 mm, and I'm just going to offset that line, not this arc. My circles can then be placed directly on that line by offsetting this line over. So my first circle, it would be 57 off this. So let's offset, X-form, offset. First one's in 38.05 millimeters, 38.05 mm. Good. And our second one is 57.95 mm, and we'll get that offset. That's the location for our other 2 circles. So I can create an arc with a center point with a diameter of 4.05 millimeters for each. We can lock that, and then it's just a matter of place a circle, place a circle. And once we're done with that, we're just deleting lines. all these lines that were just simply for construction can disappear, and we're ready to start projecting up for this drawing, to start working on our top view.